The cold wind swept through the cemetery like a warning, rattling the loose branches above and sending dried leaves skittering across the stone paths. The city was still waking up, its noise distant and muffled, but here, everything was painfully quiet, except for the soft, broken sounds coming from a young woman kneeling in front of a grave. She was trembling, not from the cold, though her thin clothes did little to shield her, but from something deeper, heavier. Her shoulders shook as she cried, her fingers clutching the edge of the gravestone as if it were the only thing keeping her from collapsing completely. She didn't notice the footsteps approaching. She didn't notice anything at all, until a deep voice behind her spoke, calm but filled with curiosity and something else, something like hurt. "That's my wife's grave," the man said. "What's your story?" The woman gasped, wiping her tears quickly, almost frantically, as if ashamed to be caught in such a vulnerable moment. She turned around, expecting anger. Instead, she found herself staring at a tall man with silver hair, dressed in a dark coat that looked far too expensive for a place like this. His eyes were sharp but not unkind, and though his face looked stern, there was a softness beneath it, a softness of someone who had loved deeply and lost painfully. She scrambled to stand, nearly tripping, but the man lifted a hand gently. "No, don't get up," he said quietly. "I just want to know why you're crying at my wife's grave." For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her eyes filled again, spilling tears she didn't want him to see. She gulped in air like a drowning person. I'm sorry," she said finally. "I didn't mean to invade your space. I didn't know anyone else came here this early." His gaze remained on her, unreadable but steady. "My wife passed away 3 years ago," he said. "I visit every morning, but in all that time, I've never seen anyone cry here like that. That grave, it meant everything to me. So if you're crying here, there must be a reason." She looked down, her fingers twisting together. "I wasn't crying for her," she whispered. "Not exactly." The man's brow lifted slightly, but he didn't interrupt. "I came here to talk to her," she said. "I know that sounds strange. I don't know her, not really. But sometimes, it feels like she listens. Like she understands." Her voice quivered, and her breath came shakily. "And today was too much. I just broke." The man studied her for a long moment. Something about her, though messy, broken, and clearly exhausted, pulled at him. She looked like someone drowning in silence, someone carrying a burden too heavy for her fragile frame. He moved closer, but slowly, carefully. "What happened today?" he asked. The young woman closed her eyes, and fresh tears slid down her cheeks. "Everything," she whispered. "Everything happened today." But she didn't say more. "Not yet." The man exhaled, his breath clouding in the winter air. He wasn't used to being gentle with strangers. He wasn't used to letting anyone close anymore. Since his wife's death, he had sealed his heart behind layers of work, wealth, and loneliness. He was a millionaire who owned skyscrapers yet lived completely alone. He thought he had mastered grief, until now, seeing this fragile stranger crying at the one place he considered sacred. "Come," he said softly. "Let's sit. You don't have to tell me everything. Just breathe." She hesitated, then lowered herself onto the cold stone bench near the grave. The man sat beside her, leaving enough space to avoid overwhelming her. The silence stretched for a long time, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt respectful. Finally, she spoke again. "My name is Elise." The man nodded. "I'm Jonathan." She didn't react. She clearly didn't know who he was, the owner of half the city, the man people called ruthless in business, the man who hadn't smiled in years. Something about that felt unexpectedly refreshing. Elise took another breath, one that shook through her whole body. "I lost someone too," she said. Her eyes moved to the gravestone. "Not the same way, but he was the only person who ever cared about me. And today I had to walk away from the last thing he left me." Jonathan turned slightly. "Who was he?" "My brother," she whispered. "Liam. He raised me, protected me, worked 3 jobs to keep us alive. And when he died last year, everything fell apart. But he left me our apartment. A tiny, broken place. But it was ours. It was all I had left of him." Her breath broke. "And today," she said, her voice barely audible, "they evicted me." Jonathan's eyes narrowed slightly, not at her, but at the situation. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Rent went up," she whispered. "A lot. And I lost my job last month." I was already behind. I tried everything, begging for more time, offering to clean the building, anything. But they didn't care. They threw me out. Everything I had fit into one small bag. She held up a worn backpack beside her. Jonathan's jaw tightened. And after that, she continued, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. I just wanted to talk to someone who understood loss. She looked at the grave again. Your wife seemed like someone who would understand. So I came here. Jonathan looked at her for a long time, and something in him shifted. Not pity. Not sympathy. Something deeper, more personal. He had always believed people came into one's life for a reason. For the last 3 years, he had spoken to his wife every morning, telling her everything he couldn't tell anyone else. Today, it felt as if she were answering him, not with words, but with a broken stranger who felt the kind of pain he once felt. Elise, he said slowly, why not go to a shelter? Her expression twisted. I tried, she said. They're full. The woman at the desk told me to come back next week. Next week. Her voice rose, then cracked. I don't even know where I'm sleeping tonight. Jonathan breathed in, then out. You haven't eaten, have you? She shook her head, embarrassed. Do you have family? No. Her voice was dry. Just Liam. And now, not even him. The wind brushed past them, but neither moved. Elise stared at the ground. Jonathan stared at her. Something about her vulnerability hit him harder than he expected. Maybe it was because she reminded him of himself, long before he became wealthy. Maybe it was because she had spoken to his wife's grave with the same fragile sincerity he once did. Or maybe something else, something he didn't understand yet. Listen, he said gently, I can help you. She stiffened immediately. I'm not asking for money. I know you're not. And I'm not here to take advantage of anyone. His voice softened. I didn't say you were. She looked away, hugging her backpack to her chest. People don't help others without wanting something in return. Jonathan's expression changed, sadness flickering in his eyes. My wife used to say the same thing, he murmured. Right before she proved herself wrong and saved me. Maybe it's my turn to help someone else. Elise's lips trembled, unsure whether to believe him. Let me take you somewhere warm, Jonathan said softly. We'll talk. You can eat. And no, before you say it, I don't want anything from you. I just don't want to leave you crying at my wife's grave. Elise lowered her head, tears falling silently. Why? She asked. Why would you help me? Jonathan looked at his wife's gravestone. Because, he whispered, she'd want me to. Elise didn't speak again on the walk out of the cemetery. She followed Jonathan quietly, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her steps slow and unsure. The city beyond the cemetery gates felt harsher now, louder, colder, indifferent. Cars honked. People hurried past. No one noticed her swollen eyes or her trembling hands. Jonathan stayed close enough that she felt protected but not trapped. He moved with quiet certainty, a man who was used to leading but not intimidating. When he opened the door of his black car, a sleek, polished vehicle that clearly didn't belong in her world, Elise froze. I shouldn't get in that, she whispered. People like me don't belong in cars like that. Jonathan gave a small, almost sad smile. You're not. People like you. You're just Elise. He gestured toward the seat. Please. She hesitated, then slowly got in. The warmth inside hit her immediately, and she inhaled shakily, her fingers pressing against the heated seat as if trying to ground herself. Jonathan closed her door gently before circling to the driver's side. The drive was quiet at first. Elise stared out the window, watching the world blur past, the shops she used to pass walking to work, the street where she and Liam would share cheap hot chocolate on winter mornings, the hotel where she once cleaned rooms to make rent. Every place carried a memory, and every memory twisted painfully inside her. Jonathan watched her from the corner of his eye. She looked so small, swallowed by the large leather seat. Her hair was tangled from the wind, her clothes worn, her fingers red from the cold. And yet, something about her presence felt gentle, honest, raw in a way he hadn't felt around anyone in years. You don't have to tell me everything, he said eventually. But if you want to talk, I'm here. She swallowed hard. I'm scared, she whispered. Of me? No. She shook her head quickly. Of everything. Jonathan nodded slowly. I know that feeling. She lowered her gaze, twisting her fingers. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, or even tonight. I feel like I'm falling and there's nothing to hold on to. Jonathan's hands tightened briefly on the steering wheel. You're not falling anymore, he said quietly. I won't let you. She blinked, tears gathering again, but this time from relief rather than despair. When they reached his building, Elise stared up at it in disbelief. It was a tall, modern tower with glass windows reflecting the pale sky, one of the type she always avoided walking too close to because even its sidewalk felt expensive. You live here, she whispered. Jonathan chuckled softly. Yes. She looked down at her shoes, embarrassed. I shouldn't be here. Why not? Because I look like I don't even belong on the same street. Jonathan stepped closer, his voice gentle. Elise, you belong anywhere you need to be. Her eyes widened slightly at the kindness in his tone. He led her through the lobby, past marble floors and warm lighting. She kept her gaze down, afraid of the disapproving looks she expected from the staff. But no one reacted with judgment. They nodded respectfully at Jonathan, then looked at Elise with polite neutrality. Inside the elevator, she stood pressed into a corner, gripping her backpack like a shield. You're safe, Jonathan said softly. I know, she whispered. It's just overwhelming. The elevator doors opened to a spacious penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Elise's breath caught. She had never seen anything like it. The room was open, filled with warm wood tones and soft light. It didn't feel cold or empty. It felt lived in, yet lonely. This is where you live alone? She asked, quietly. Jonathan nodded. Yes, since Claire died. Elise stepped carefully inside, as if afraid to dirty the floor. It's beautiful, but it feels sad. Jonathan gave a small, melancholic smile. That's because it is. He gestured toward the dining table. Sit. I'll make you something to eat. You cook. She blinked, genuinely surprised. He laughed softly. My wife taught me. I wasn't good at it. She enjoyed teasing me. The pain in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. While he prepared soup, simple, warm, and comforting, Elise wandered to the large framed photograph on the wall. It showed Jonathan and a woman with soft eyes and a bright smile. Claire. Elise touched the edge of the frame delicately. You loved her a lot, she whispered. I still do, Jonathan replied from behind her. But she wanted me to keep living. Elise turned slightly. How did she? Cancer. He exhaled slowly. Fast. Cruel. Unfair. I'm sorry, she whispered. He nodded once, then handed her a bowl of soup. She ate carefully, savoring each spoonful, not just because she was hungry, but because it had been so long since she'd eaten something made with care. After a few minutes, she set the bowl down, her eyes filling again. Why are you doing this for me? She asked. Jonathan sat across from her. Because you remind me of who I used to be, before I had money, before I had stability. And because my wife spent her life helping people. She'd be furious if I saw someone crying at her grave and walked away. Elise covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed. I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to repay me, he said gently. Just, let me help. She lowered her hands slowly. What do you want me to do? Jonathan took a breath, choosing his words with care. Stay here tonight. Rest. You're exhausted. Tomorrow, we'll figure out what you need. A job. A safe place to live. You don't have to face the world alone. Elise stared at him, stunned. I can't stay here. You can, he said, and you will. I won't let you go back into the cold. Her lips trembled. I've never had anyone care about me like this. Except Liam. Jonathan smiled softly. Then think of this as, continuing what your brother started. She burst into quiet tears, and Jonathan moved slowly, offering her a tissue but giving her space. She cried into her hands, the kind of tears that came from relief, exhaustion, and grief all at once. When she finally calmed down, he spoke again. There's one more thing, he said. Earlier, when you talked to my wife's grave. What did you say to her? Elise looked down, embarrassed. I just told her I didn't know where to go anymore. And I asked her, she hesitated, then whispered the rest. I asked her if she could send someone to help me. Jonathan's breath stalled. In the silence that followed, something shifted between them, something invisible but undeniable. As if, in an impossible way, Claire herself had woven their paths together. Jonathan swallowed, his voice deep and steady. Maybe she did. Elise lifted her head, her eyes shining with something fragile but hopeful. "Jonathan," she whispered, "what happens now?" He stood and extended his hand, not commanding, not expecting, simply offering. "Now," he said softly, "you start again. And I'll be here to help you do it." Elise stared at his hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she placed her small, trembling hand in his. For the first time in a year, she didn't feel like she was falling. And for the first time in 3 years, Jonathan felt like he wasn't alone. They didn't know what tomorrow held. They didn't know how their lives would change, intertwine, or challenge each other. But in that quiet moment, in a warm penthouse above a cold city, two broken hearts found something unexpected: hope.